Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well today. In this video, we are going over the latest roadmap update, which in some way makes it seems like 4.3 is having an identity crisis, as well as just generally some of the new things with Star Citizen nowadays. Not too much to go through today, but a few notable things and some pretty big changes to what would have been the PvE patch. Now kind of just looks like a normal sandbox activity patch. So we'll be going through that today. But if you are enjoying the content, feel free to subscribe. I do have channel memberships open if you wanted to go the extra mile, and feel free to join the community Discord. I would love to have you there. Without further ado, though, let's get into what has actually changed with 4.3. Now, before we get into some of the big changes, I wanted to get into some of the visual updates that we had for some of these release view cards. First things first, we have the updated hairstyles. These are just as exciting as they were 2 weeks ago when we saw them in a sneak peek as they are now. And if we're gonna be honest, it's just not that exciting. So if you are into the new hairstyles, this is a good way of actually seeing what they're gonna be adding. But for the most part, really nothing big here. Next thing, we do have dynamic snow. This doesn't tell us too much. It shows a nice picture of it actually snowing, but it does show us that this is on Microtech. So there's a very solid chance that Microtech is kind of like the test planet for this. I assume it's only going to be locked to Microtech just to keep it controlled for the initial release, but I am excited for this, and it does confirm at least the planet that we will have snow on. Next, we do have the updated Wicklow ships. We have the Terrapin Medical, we have the Silencer Tack, and then the Drake Golem. These are pretty nice ships, I think, added to the pool here, but not much to say outside of the fact that they are going to be added to the Wicklow set of ships. Now, the next two things are updated armor sets, or at least just visuals for these armor sets. And if we're going to be honest here, these are probably the most exciting aspect of this update. These armor sets look incredible. And I think that they did a really, really great job making these kind of fit a really solid theme. I love the black and red on the left here, and then the snowy one just looks really incredible as well. If we're gonna be honest, when I initially saw these sniper light armor outfits at last year's CitizenCon and some of the latest sneak peeks, I was already excited for when we get Starwear so I could add some sort of cloak and hood kind of aspect to it. But it looks like CIG thought of that as well and just made it an armor set by itself. That does raise some concerns for when we get Starwear though, because I'm kind of curious how adding clothing on top of an already clothed armor set would work. But regardless, I think these things look absolutely sick, and I am super, super excited to see them in game. These are going to be the, I think, more special forms of these armor sets, so you will have to earn them, whether it be through Wicklow or through actually completing the new Onyx facilities, which we're going to talk about in a second. Regardless, though, these armor sets look sick, and I would love to hear your thoughts on them down below. Now, moving into the big changes for 4.3, the first thing here is just a simple name change, and that is the abandoned underground facilities changing to Onyx facilities. This is something we already knew about because of leaked files from, I think, 4.2.1, where basically it's already kind of named it as the Onyx facilities. We just technically didn't know that officially speaking, but for the most part, it's just simply a name change as far as we're concerned. Now, the big news and the thing that has everyone kind of talking about this roadmap update is the cooperative zones being removed from the actual release view. And the Onyx facility missions are now actually categorized as a sandbox activity rather than the cooperative zones that they were supposed to be. Now, this is a big thing for a lot of reasons. And before we, automatically jump to conclusions and say this just sucks and CIG sucks and all this stuff, I do want to kind of think about this critically and as to kind of why they did this. Now, the most obvious reason is that it is not ready for 4.3. And Xylo said this in a post on Reddit or responding to someone on Reddit, basically saying, hey, this is something we want to do. It's still planned. It's just simply going to miss the 4.3 release timeframe. And I respect them for pulling the plug on this early because if we're going to be honest here, CIG has a terrible track record of releasing something in a state whether that's just completely unfinished or without the systems and features needed to actually create a good experience that we all want to enjoy and kind of dive into. One of those systems is instancing content. And this is something they talked about a lot, especially for 1.0. They're going to do it for things like the Art Corp and Municipal Works, just areas where you take an elevator or something, and then when you get to your floor, it's going to be an instance area, so only you and your squad can actually access it. This is a great way of actually isolating PvE areas and creating it where they are actually PvE areas. It's not like it can be interrupted by PvP, can't be interrupted by really anything. It's you, your squad, and you are going to do a task or mission in that area. And this is something I actually really do love. As much as I want all three kind of gameplay types to coexist, PvP, PvE, non combat, I think this is a great way of actually kind of isolating it into an area so you can have a dedicated zone for it outside of just doing it within the Star Citizen verse by itself. And this, again, I think is a solid idea. I just don't think CIG is willing to test out instancing just yet, simply for the stability and playability of Star Citizen for 2025. And that only really is one system that we are talking about here. There's others like the lawn security, reputation, just a ton of other features and systems that are inevitably going to help out with different areas of Stanton, especially since it's a medium security area. And a good example of CIG actually kind of releasing something in a more misrepresented state is the Hathor mining facilities. Now, whilst this will probably always act as a mild PvP environment, just given the fact that you are kind of going for more valuable resources, in the future, we're going to have some really big systems like UE responses to crime. There's going to be the reputation system, which will have a big impact on your long term progression. And just generally speaking, you're not going to be incentivized to just kill everyone you see on site. And whilst I think CIG might be kind of dodging one bullet here, kind of avoiding a Hathor situation where it doesn't really represent what it's going to be in the future, I really think this is an issue that exists far outside of just this patch 4.3. I think this is something that CIG deals with across the board, and I think it is mainly just a communication issue. If we think about it, there's so many features and systems in this game that are going to be changed, updated, added into the game that create a whole different experience than what we have now. And since CIG does such a weird job at kind of advertising this as almost like a live service game, it makes a lot of players confused whenever they release a system that is going to fundamentally change how we play the game. I think a good example is engineering. A lot of people are not excited for engineering, despite it always being in the long term plans of Star Citizen. It's something that we've anticipated for a long time, but for some reason, it's like a huge divide in the community simply because CIG does a terrible job at communicating these systems and features and how they will actually change what we have now into the game that they want for 1.0. And yes, that's something that naturally happens for early access games, and you will naturally lose players from that because they just can't always keep up with the project. They don't always know what's going on. And whenever they finally add an updated system or feature like engineering, then yes, they might leave the game, but that is just kind of one of those aspects of early access. Now, I do think CIG could do a much better job communicating that though to their majority player base, the ones that are at least checking in on like Inside Star Citizens and Star Citizen Live. I apologize for going kind of a little bit off topic with that, but I do think that CIG is doing a good thing when it comes to pulling these cooperative zones, even if they were really close to release and they might kind of be ready to release just in a slightly unfinished state. I would much rather them wait for them when they actually have the systems and features needed for proper PvE zones rather than doing what they always do, which is release something that won't be like how it is in the future and the community gets riled up about it. So I think avoiding us going through that cycle again is a really good thing. And at the very least, I applaud CIG for that. I do think 4.3 is still going to be an awesome patch, and we should see it go into Evo testing by tomorrow. So we'll probably have some leaks or something of some kind to talk about soon. But I do get it. It is a pretty dry time when it comes to Star Citizen, not only news wise, but progress wise. We just are going at a snail's pace right now. And even though it is kind of really boring and slow, I am still looking forward to the long term. We do have CitizenCon coming up in about 2 months. So that is something to look forward to. But I do get it. It has been a dry season for Star Citizen. And hopefully, as we move forward, it gets a little bit more exciting. And maybe, just maybe, we can see something happen in the EPTU. I don't even want to say it anymore because I feel like I've just been wrong every time about when they might open up the EPTU. But oh, I hope it's soon. Outside of that, I appreciate you sticking around and watching. I just wanted to make a quick video on the 4.3 situation. It looks like the PvE patch has turned into, once again, another sandbox activity patch. I'm honestly not too mad about it, but I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Do you agree that CIG should kind of hold things off before they are, released so that they're in a much more finished state, more representative of a 1.0 experience? Or would you rather them actually get something in sooner, even if it will inevitably change a ton over time? That is my question for you. And again, I really appreciate you sticking around to the end of the video. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video.